Thanks everybody for being here. We've got a great session today from our friends at Force Marketing. We're going to be talking about on-demand and in-market, refining ad strategies for streaming media. Joining us and presenting today is Vody Tomczyk. He is Senior Vice President of Force Marketing, and we also have Dane Tocco, I'm so sorry, Senior Manager Retail Marketing Operations at Lithia. Thanks everybody.
The odds of her getting my name right versus yours. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope this will be a very informative session. There's a lot of stuff going on in the marketplace right now. There's a lot of things going on at the local dealership level. And we're going to be talking, as we say here, a lot about streaming media. And what we're hoping to give you guys is a real detailed blueprint, a real go-to-market strategy on how to be really effective with this. So, quick introduction beyond what. She's like, you got to hold it up. I'm running the Statue of Liberty play here. All right. So, Dane is from Lithia. I am from Force Marketing. Asked Dane to join me today here because, like all great partnerships, we challenge our partners at Lithia and they challenge us. And a lot of what we're talking about here has been shaped by a lot of the things we've done together. So want to take a quick framing second here and speak about the macros, right? These are, I don't think are going to be any sort of news to anybody here, but we've got a lot of things going on that are making it slightly, if not a bit more difficult to sell cars, right? This isn't the past 2 years where, we're running around trying to find the biggest bag we can to catch all the money falling out of the sky, right? We've got things that are generally creating some strong headwinds, right? Some of these to digest here around, greater inventory on lots, increasing days supply, affordability issues, rising insurance rates, customers keeping their car longer. And Dane, we were talking before about some of the things you guys are seeing at the dealership level, right? These are great macro trends from an S&P mobility perspective. But what are you guys seeing in terms of these stats here that, you're facing at the actual retail level?
Yeah, these are obvious things that are affecting us in the dealerships. We got so used to over the last 2 or 3 years. I don't want to say easy, but easy. And now it's getting back to the basics. So it's going into our CRMs and our call tracking and our flows and understanding today's customer versus the customer that was coming in the door 5 years ago or 3 years ago, and rebranding, remarketing our entire workflow and our entire operation and process based off what the true reality is today of people coming into the stores and the challenges that they're facing. And if you're able to take a step back and realize who your customer is and refocus on that process, you can capture a lot of these things. So I think that's what we're doing strong in the Midwest right now is redoing our process to do that.
So these are headwinds, right? Nothing new, right? These are things that we are facing that makes it a little more difficult to generate profitable sales, right? To generate profitability through the dealership. But the reality is you could, like the GIF on the screen says here, you could either cry about it or you could go fight, right? Like you can actually go take this fight head on, right? And the reality is the way we see it and the way we're advising our dealers from a marketing perspective is that at least for the foreseeable future, right? The next 12, 18, 24 months, this is a market share game, right? And market share is not really a today thing, although we're tackling it today. Market share, for all intents and purposes, is the long game. The more we do to gain market share at the dealership level is certainly units today, but it's units in operation tomorrow that are going to feed every bit of profitability at the dealership long term, right? Coming through the lane, greater opportunity to acquire used inventory, the cheapest customer to sell a new car to, and sort of everything in between. So the reality is we have to harness these headwinds, right? We have to get up, we got to fight, and we got to have a plan. Now, when it comes to the marketing side of how we approach this, we've got some options, right? We can sort of do the things we've always done, or like Dane was saying, right? We can take a look at everything we're doing and we can find a better way to go to market, a better way to go about it. And when we, on the Force Marketing side, think about marketing and marketing strategies for our dealers, we really break it into two buckets. Right? We've got a bucket that's around demand capture, right? Think of all the things that can capture demand, your paid search, your SEO, and sort of everything in between. And then we've got the demand generation side. And what dealers have been kind of over leveraged or over indexed from a marketing perspective for a long time has been that demand capture side. And a lot of what they do is they rely on the manufacturers to generate demand for them. And in this world, we can't do that. That's not really an option. So we've got options when it comes to creating demand. The problem with demand, and I know Dane can speak to this firsthand, but a lot of the problems with creating demand at the local level and why dealers don't typically tackle it and they stay really on the low funnel side of things is because if not done well, demand creation can be expensive, right? Very, very costly. It can add up very quickly. So when we think about the options to create demand, some of which are on the screen here, right? You got to think about this through the lens of first audiences, right? Who do I want to communicate with? Who can I get super addressable with? Who can I get really targeted with? Who can I make sure of that when I'm investing $1, I know exactly where that dollar is going and it's going to support these outcomes. When you think about addressability, right? It's great that I found somebody to talk to, but I got to make sure I can actually reach them on a campaign or a medium that they're consuming. And with the fragmentation of media consumption, some of which we'll get into more in just a bit here, that can be complicated. Then I want to generate really personalized one-to-one creative at scale. Another sort of business challenge / business opportunity when it comes to marketing. And finally, I want to make sure that I've got really strong attribution so that I can make sure of the dollar I'm investing is returning more than $1 back from an ROI perspective. And so that leaves us with where we are today, which is the opportunity within streaming, both streaming from a CTV perspective and streaming from an audio perspective. It's likely that you on the dealer side are either doing this, and if you're not, you have certainly been pitched or presented to do this. But the problem is there's more ways to do it wrong than there are to do it right. So what we want to do here is we want to give you a blueprint on how to go to market effectively, efficiently, and ultimately generating that market share gain and that long-term value for the business. So I'm going to let you in behind the scenes a little bit into a lot of data. Some of this data is going to be qualifying data in terms of the strategies and the methodologies that we're going to present to you here. Some of this data is going to be very specific, actionable items that you can take back to your stores, back to your even marketing vendors, that you work with that can help build these strategies to be super efficient and effective. So first we want to start with an audience, right? And from an audience perspective, I want to give a quick qualification here. I don't intend to read every bullet on the screen here. Certainly feel free to digest all of these. But the data we're talking about here on the streaming media side is 5+ years of regress data where we're taking a look at a ton of aggregate outcomes at the local dealership level. 52 million plus outcomes that consist of dealership foot traffic, sales, leads, market share, right? Thinking about things from expected sales and outcomes, right? That's all of the data that's going into our model that allows us to do what we do on behalf of our dealers. Now, that's one side of it, right? That's the marketing vendor side of the equation. On the dealer side of the equation, you guys also have a lot of data. There's a great opportunity to marry that data. Dane, give them a perspective on how you guys look at that from your side.
Yeah, as you guys all know, Lithia, we have so much data that we don't know what to do with it all the times. And what's good with us is when we incorporated preferred partners like Force Marketing, we were able to take our data of knowing our customer, knowing what we do between our OEMs and our stores and our markets, and then work with them on their much broader data spectrum and collaborate together. And I would say that partnership is probably the biggest piece here of understanding, hey, how can we properly work together to come up with a strategy, come up with a plan? And then once we come up with that plan and strategy together, now how do we execute it? And I think that's what's been good with us is taking both data pieces together and really developing that plan together to execute it in long term.
Completely agree. So now moving to the second piece from an audience side of things, and this is, if there's going to be 3 or 4 main takeaways here today, this is going to be one of those main takeaways. When we think about audience from a funnel perspective, right? We think about it from the dealership side of we need to be addressing in-market audiences. I can't tell you how many times either myself or people on our team that communicate with dealers and talk about building a strategy, and the dealers say, I got to reach these in-market customers. What in-market customers do you have? Well, they told me they have these in-market customers, and I got to go after these in-market customers. And the reality is yes, we have to play in the in-market space. In-market is, like all audiences, can consist of first party from your dealership, DMS, and CRM side, but also a ton of third-party vendors. But what it also represents is one of the noisiest, most competitive for attention sets of audiences that exist. You have to be here, right? You can't ignore the in-market audiences, the people that are 7 to 30 days from purchase. But everyone, and I mean everyone, is going after these customers. Every other dealership in your market, tier 2s and regional associations where applicable, OEMs, the used car side of things, right, with your CarMax and online retailers like Carvana, everybody is going after these customers. It's extremely noisy. The little secret sauce, the first little secret sauce bullet that I can give you guys is starting to play in this space. Historically, people will think of this space in a traditional audience funnel as maybe your consideration set. Well, we've done a great job over a long period of time pulling a lot of data together that gives us perspective into not only defining this audience, which we call pre-market, which are customers who are going to be 31 to 90 days from purchase. It not only gives us a perspective on who these customers are on, it gives us a perspective, which I'll illustrate deeper when we get to the attribution side, just how valuable these customers are. Because there aren't a lot of dealers playing in this space. This is a space where you can talk to customers in a very cost-effective way and get your message in front of them where it's not noisy at all. Your message can ultimately be received. After we talk about the audience side, we want to get into addressability. On the streaming side, a lot of what I hear and a lot of what our team hears is, I got to buy direct. Buying direct is the best place to go. Buying direct could represent, hey, I want to buy Hulu. I want to buy Pandora. I want to buy Spectrum or Effective. And these are all places where people consume media. But if you look at just how fragmented media consumption is, what you quickly realize is if you only go to these places, you are leaving out a massive, massive percentage of audiences that you ultimately want to talk to, right? So even in this example here, which is data from Q1 on streaming media consumption, let's say that Netflix was fully ad supported, right? Even if you went to Netflix, which was the biggest consumption, is where the biggest consumption takes place, you'd be leaving out over 70% of customers that you can talk to. Let's say you want to go direct to Peacock, right? NBC is going to have the Olympics later this year. Great. But if you only go to Peacock, you're leaving out 94% of all customers that you can communicate with. You don't have the luxury to just go to one publisher and hope to reach your audience there. Once we've identified where we can reach these customers, we got to put a plan together. So here's a look at one of Dane's dealers, which is Ramsey Subaru in the Des Moines market. And this is a visual representation of how all this comes together. So first we want to identify who are these pre- and in-market shoppers in this market, right? Represented by our lovely little animated houses there. From there, we want to identify where we should be going geographically. So what we do is we work with partners like IHS and others, work with the data that our partners have on the dealership side out of their DMS and CRM. And what we want to do is identify where 80% of their sales come from and where 80% of their opportunity is. Because this is the target-rich environment to go to, right? So in the case of, for those who can't see it, for the case of Ramsey Subaru, 80% of their sales take place within a 20-mile radius. That's where we want to be. And then from there, we want to identify who we can address, right? Who has a device that we can actually talk to them on. And that's how we build a plan. Because people ask often, right, how much should I be spending? And the reality is, how much you should be spending depends on what your goals are, what your opportunity is, and who we can actually talk to that matches your business outcomes. Fourth bullet is going to be creative. This is, as I mentioned, when you think about the 3 or 4 things you want to take away as really great new information from this session, this is going to be the second bullet here. We've done a lot of research on this, and this is actually the first time that we're presenting this research. Over the last 12 months, we've aggregated all the data from every campaign we've run, with every different creative set against every one of these respective audiences in every one of these markets for every one of these dealers. And what we found is the creative to the funnel and the creative to the type of dealer really does matter. So on the pre-market side, which again are going to be audiences that are 31 to 90 days from purchase, the best creative that you can use is OEM vehicle-specific creative. The reason for this is because this is a very impressionable customer, right? This is a customer where you can convince them where they need to go. You can get them into the vehicle, get them excited about the vehicle, get them understanding about the vehicle. Certainly need to brand your store, right? Let them know it's you who's putting that message out there. Put your why buy propositions along these OEM vehicle creatives. But the reality is when you put this type of creative at this audience, you see nearly a 59% lift in performance. And to be clear, when I say 59% lift in performance, that performance is measured by people that are actually showing up at the dealership. This is based on store visits. Now, when we work further down the funnel, looking at in-market audiences, which we break into luxury dealers, so think your Highlines, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Porsche, et cetera, and then economy, right? So Honda, Toyota, Stellantis, Ford, et cetera, and then on the used car side. On the luxury side, this tends to perform very well when we are skewing our creative to being very feature and tech heavy. Show them all the cool bells and whistles. Because when we do, as compared to showing maybe offer creative or just general branding creative, you're going to see over a 27% lift in performance when it comes to store visits. On the economy side, this shouldn't come as much of a surprise. Offers. Offers are going to win, right? We want to put offers in front of those customers. The Mendoza line, if you will, of offers that are generating or accelerating sales the best are out-the-door payments under $600. So think in the $400, $450 or less range. And then on the used car side, I don't think this should come as much of a surprise either, focusing on the vehicle, right? Dynamic ads wherever possible. Should note here that the 3 ads that you see on the bottom are all from our Drive video ad unit, which allows us to bring inventory directly from the VDP segmented down to the audience to match it with it. So that it gives you the ability to say, look, I want to show this feature and tech heavy creative, but I want to match it with the inventory that the customer's interested in. I want to put an offer out there, but I want to match it with what the customer's interested in. Dane, we have a lot of conversations around creative. Creative tends to be, let's call it a huge opportunity at the dealership level, right? Forever it's been, I just want to brand and I want to throw my name. And not only do I want to throw my name out there, I want to see my name out there, right? But you've got a lot of perspective on your side with this as well.
Yeah, so I've taken a ton of time around creative over the last couple of years with Lithia because the stores I took on, and for frame of reference, I have 63 stores that I oversee with 30 OEMs. So I have every different type of customer and every different type of store, and I have to constantly put the creative hat on and think of ways we can attack these customers. And all this is good, luxury, payments, tech, that's all good, but how do you go a step further? And it's the hardest thing to do is to get the store involvement because it takes time and effort, and we're all busy in the stores. But it drove home in the last session I was at talking about community and getting involved with the community is tie in those tech features, tie in the audience, what's important to the audience, into the community as well. And recently we've been pushing our stores to get custom video done. We're bringing production out to the stores, and we're tying in things like Walk for the Red 150, where we have guys on our team that walk 140 miles with the firefighters to raise money for firefighters with cancer, with OEM footage of a F-150 Lightning powering stuff to get them to the end point, all these different tech features, along with what we're doing in the community. So if you can tie in these pieces that you're doing in the community and with your store, along with tech and everything, it's even a greater lift and a greater impact. And people start seeing that. When they start seeing it on social, they start seeing it on all these different CTV ads like Netflix and Hulu, you start getting the text, because you're not getting the text from them seeing a normal OEM type commercial. You're getting the text when they say, hey, I just saw that commercial. My son goes to Romeo High School. That's freaking awesome. You guys helped out the high school and did the stuff there. You're part of the academy program. That's awesome. That's when you're getting those texts. That's when people start talking. And in today's age, when people start talking, it's extremely, extremely powerful, because that's what you're getting, is you're getting those people, you're getting those referrals. People do a lot of research on their own. They're seeing your ads out there. And in my opinion, when you start connecting those pieces, the tech, what the customer wants, the payments, along with what your dealership is, why buy ads, whatever you stand for, it's a game changer. Again, the hardest thing to incorporate, because it takes time and effort on the dealer's part and people in the dealership. But if you can execute that, it's a game changer.
Well, I think the good news is, though, is it is a heavy lift up front, but one of the things we've been able to do is once we have that creative, right, once we make the effort to do it, you can use it for a long time. It has a lot of legs. Mm-hmm. But the days of saying, I made this piece of creative and I'm going to show the same piece of creative to everybody are gone. You have to match where the customer is in their journey to the type of creative that you're showing them. And then attribution, right? How do we measure what works? So many times I hear on the streaming side of things, like, I don't know what works. And you know what that ends up doing? It ends up creating a lot of buys that are solely based on CPM, right? If you're asking me as a dealer and we're talking about streaming and one of your initial questions is, what is your CPM? That tells me you don't have great attribution. Because the reality is, you could have a $100 CPM or a $10 CPM. If the $100 CPM results in sales and the $10 CPM doesn't, which one of those CPMs was more expensive? And so the days of buying that way are gone. We have to have better attribution. So the way we look at attribution, and I'll tee it up through a case study on the same store that we referenced before, Ramsey Subaru. The way we look at attribution is full funnel, right? We want to have website metrics, right? These people came to the website. What did they do? Did they look at VDPs? Did they submit leads? We want to look at as, did they physically show up at our dealership? We want to look at it as, did they buy cars? We want to look at it as, am I moving market share? And the reality is, with the right technology and the right partners, those type of metrics on these buys are available. You can make educated decisions on what's working beyond just a CPM, because the CPM is not a real metric. And so in this case study here, just to give you a little bit of color on a very specific application, this store, and more I'm hearing a lot of this, not just with you all, but several groups we work with, where the OEM is saying, look, we need some additional sales out of this region, or we're going to put another point in, right? We got to expand our footprint. We need greater market share for the brand inside of that market. Otherwise, we're going to put in an open point. So in this case here, what we did was we designed a conquest campaign that was going after certain brands at the time that were having strikes in that area. We were going after certain brands that were hurting from an inventory perspective in that area, didn't have competitive offers in that area, right? A very specific campaign to match this market. And you can see the results on the screen here over a couple months, right? Measuring the amount of people who come into the dealership, measuring the amount of people who consumed our ad, interacted with our ad, and actually purchased vehicles. But there's more than that, right? I know we're talking about streaming here, and one of the things I know, Dane, that you guys hammer is it's not just about one channel.
No, you said it perfectly. You said full funnel. And outside of good creative, that's probably my next biggest strong point. It was when I'm working with our partners, it's, hey, we have all these different campaigns going on, but what does the creative look like across all of them? Are they consistent? Are they the same color schemes? Are they the same messaging points? Are they the same across? So if someone is listening, do they get the same story as they're listening to on streaming audio as they do when they see it on streaming video? Or as they do when they see a display ad pop up on their email or social? Because just like any of the big brands out there, if you see and hear that same story, that same message, that same logo, when you're in market and you're ready to do something and pull the trigger, that's going to stick with you. So I make sure that when we're collaborating as partners, that is a huge point. Like, we have to have the same message over and over. And make sure that the creative is brought to the table too. I tell my team all the time, I say, hey, we talk about data all day long. I don't know, a lot of you guys are dealers in here. When's the last time a vendor came in and said you're doing poorly? No vendor tells us we're doing poorly. They all say we're successful. Even if I tell them, well, I lost $100,000 last month, there's no way that we did good. And a lot of it's just knowing what you have out there. So checking the creative, making sure we're aligned on the same thing, and making sure you're using your partners to make sure you're aligned on that message across all channels. And that's what I always call full funnel.
So it's like, great, now we're done, right? We've reached the finish line here. Well, reporting, and it's a good sort of segue here, what I tell dealers is reporting only matters if you do something with it to get better, right? At the end of the day, when I do a reporting call with a dealer on their April campaign performance, it doesn't matter for April. You can't sell another car. You can't service another customer. What good is that to my April sales? It's only good if I do something with it. So the final component here is to make sure that you are creating a feedback loop based on all of these components to ultimately drive better performance as we move forward. So and I'm going to apologize in advance that this is an eye chart. I'd love to find a better way to display this data. But the data is still, even as an eye chart, super important. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing a large scale auto group campaign strategy. You're looking at flight dates on the left side by week, and what you're looking at is index performance against itself. So 1 is a baseline, right? 1 means is the average for this entire campaign. And what we want to illustrate out of this is 2 really important points about a feedback loop, right? About how to get better. And you can only get better, 1, if you're looking at the data, but 2, you have the right attribution to be able to measure to go forward. Because if you're going off of CPM, how do you use my clearing CPM for the end of the campaign to get better on the next campaign flight? Okay, I had a $30 CPM, so what do I do now? Make it better, $28? Right? That's not actually going to translate to anything meaningful at the store level. So what this is showing is, as you look at this, you're looking at the pre-market, in-market, and third-party list segments. And what you're seeing is, as the campaign continues, that feedback loop is allowing that campaign to increase its performance. So where you see from a pre-market perspective, the combined performance of website metrics and purchase metrics started out as a 0.15, ended in the campaign as a 1.24, right? Over-indexed against the baseline. The other thing I want to illustrate here, and you will hear everybody in our company be giant proponents of this, just beating our chest that pre-market audiences are one of the largest untapped opportunities at the dealership level. When you look at it pre-market compared to in-market, compared to third-party lists, they all got better over time. But pre-market out-indexes 99 times out of 100. And the reason it out-indexes 99 times out of 100 is nobody is starting a conversation with these customers this early. It's only the manufacturers who are hitting them over the head, because the second they get in market, everyone is hitting them over the head. Dane, thoughts we were talking about on the attribution side, right? Because this is a rapidly changing market. And you can't just say, okay, that was my April performance. Great. What am I doing for May? Okay, great. Let's go super fast. Okay, What are we doing next, right?
Yeah, being in the dealer world, I come from the operations side, and let's just be honest, we're a instant gratification company, right? We want to salespeople, they want to sell the car and get paid tomorrow. Like that's how we feel. But when we're going into our stores and talking about streaming and stuff and CTV and all these different avenues of media, we really have to do a good job of setting the expectation. The expectation is this is a long-term game. You guys can see by the dates. This isn't an instant gratification. This is something that you want to build your reputation over time to earn customers in your community, the right audience, and earn them over time. So this is something that you got to grade 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, and also compare it back to the reality. Are we selling and servicing more cars since we started? You know, the data is great. It's going to tell us a lot of stuff, but this is a long-term game, and that's why when we say put the time and effort into good videos and not OEM with just, slap overs on it, that video can be used over and over and over again. And once you get 3 or 4 or 5 of them going, now that message is very clear across the market. And long term, you're going to be successful and you're going to earn more customers.
Amen. So, takeaways. Create a plan, right? Like anything else, you want to create a plan. But be really thoughtful to how you're building your plan, right? This isn't just saying, I need to sell more cars this month. Let me put an ad together and let me throw it out there on a media buy. There's a lot of data available. It can be overwhelming, but use the data to construct the plan that matches your goals. If you have increasing day supply as a Stellantis dealer on 4xEs and you need to move those things, great, have a strategy, right? If you are a luxury dealer who's having a hard time moving your EVs, great, put it together and have a strategy. Make the buy, make the investment, make it match what you're looking to accomplish. Unlock the funnel. Again, pre-market audiences. There's so much value, right? Like a Gary Vaynerchuk, for those who watch a Gary V, right? This is so untapped and so undervalued, which means those who do it see a tremendous amount of over-indexing value. Align the creative content with the funnel, right? Invest in the content like Dane was talking about, right? It matters at the end of the day. Measure from a website, store visits, sales, and market share perspective, wherever possible, and optimize. Reporting is only good if you do something with it. Nobody needs another call with their marketing vendor, to Dane's point, where they hop on and they're like, you're crushing, everything is up and to the right. You're like, but I didn't sell any more cars, and I can't sell any more cars last month. How am I going to use this information to get better? And at the end of the day, just a little tagline, we're trying to get more customers from the living room to the showroom. So we appreciate your time, appreciate your attention. If anybody has any questions, I know we are a couple minutes over here, so I won't take the time here. I can maybe step off to the side of the stage here if anybody has any questions, but thank you so much. We really appreciate it.